Good evening. I'm Alex Nargis, Director of the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, and I welcome you to the 7th Biennial Symposium on Islamic Art. And I am absolutely delighted that we're able to host this very special gathering of scholars and dignitaries from across the globe for this very important topic. In fact, I can't think of a more timely topic than to focus on the great traditions over the many centuries, in fact millennia, of art from the Islamic world. I think by the mere language of art, we can bring people together with the uniformity of the beauty of creativity of humankind. So this evening, it's my pleasure to say thank you to our great partner with VCU, because their Islamic Symposium has now become a centerpiece in the world in study of Islamic art. We have with us tonight the most distinguished VIP, Her Excellency Sheikha Al Mayassa. Welcome and thank you for joining us this evening. And if we could give her a warm Richmond and Virginia welcome. We also have Dr. Michael Rao, the president of Virginia Commonwealth University, who, as you may know, Mike, the largest university in Virginia. We think it's the best university. Our great sister on so many things. If I were to describe to you the partnerships that we have that go on across our various departments, we, like VCU, are a part of the Commonwealth of Virginia. We're an agency of the great state of Virginia. We also have a number of our members of our Board of Trustees and our Board of Directors, including Mike Schul, who is the president of the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts Board of Trustees. So Mike, thank you for being here tonight as well. And I'd like to note our speaker, Sheila Blair, the Hamad bin Khalifa Endowed Co-Chair of Islamic Art, Akel Kahera, the Dean of VCUarts in Qatar, Sean Brixey, who is the new Dean of VCUarts. So welcome to you and your wife to Richmond, Virginia. We hope you enjoy it as much as we do. And Lala Essaidi, who is the keynote speaker on gender, power, and tradition. And I would welcome everybody to go up to the 3rd floor into our South Asian galleries. We've done an installation of one of the galleries of Islamic art from the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts collection. We actually have an extensive collection of Islamic art, but it's actually installed in other areas of the museum, in our Himalayan and Tibetan areas, East Asian, South Asian, as well as in the contemporary galleries. But for this, our curator of Islamic art has pulled together some representative examples. So I invite you to go upstairs. Tonight, by the way, we're open on Thursday and Friday evenings until 9. And we have live jazz if you want to wander to listen to free live jazz in the cafe. Have a fabulous restaurant upstairs on the 3rd floor. And our galleries, which span the history of humankind's creativity, are extensive across the last 6,000 years. So I invite you, for those of you who are making your first trip to Richmond and to the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, to enjoy the riches that are here at the museum. A final note about the museum, for those of you who have never been here, we have the distinction of not only being free and open to the public, but we're the only art museum in the United States that's open 365 days a year. And thank you. And we do that on a very simple belief, that accessibility to the arts transforms lives. But more importantly, to be able to absorb the richness across time and across the world, and of course the gathering here to look at the fabulous and fascinating world of Islamic art. So it's my pleasure to now introduce Sheila Blair, the co-chair of Islamic Art. So Sheila, thank you all very much for being here.
gentlemen, I hope you can see more than I can see. I can't see anything except blackness out there. You know I'm Sheila Blair, and together with my husband and co-chair Jonathan Bloom, we share the Hamad bin Khalifa Endowed Chair in Islamic Art here at Virginia Commonwealth University. It was generously endowed by the Father Emir in 2006. And tonight we'd like to join our colleagues in welcoming you all to this symposium, the 7th Biennial Hamad bin Khalifa Symposium on Islamic Art and Culture, which has been generously sponsored by Virginia Commonwealth University, VCUarts, the Qatar Foundation, and the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. So if we could, in your tradition, have a warm Richmond hand for all of the sponsors. Jonathan and I have had the pleasure of organizing the last 6 symposia and to have participated in the first, which was held here in Richmond in 2004. We know that some of you have participated in some or even all of the symposium, but we feel very sad tonight that we have lost one of our very dear colleagues, Dina Bangdell, who died this past summer. Dina was a professor here first at VCU in Richmond and then at VCU in Qatar in Doha, where she directed the art history program. She was a great supporter of this symposium, bringing all her students. And here she is in the museum in Doha at the 2011 symposium. But with Dina, it wasn't all work. We were really very, very close friends. And here, Dina and I are relaxing with Peggy Lindauer, the new chairman of the department, on our inaugural visit to Doha in 2006, when we began planning these symposia. We will all miss her presence very, very much. The subject of our first symposium here in Richmond in 2004 was Expanded Frontiers. Subsequent symposia have explored such subjects as water, color, light, and writing in Islamic art and culture. So it's fitting that this symposium, which will be the last that we are organizing, turns to the theme of the first symposium, but takes it in entirely new directions. The first symposium in 2004 gathered a group of scholars to present different approaches to the study of Islamic art. When we first started studying the subject in the 70s, Jonathan and I, we tell our kids it was the dinosaur age. It was generally assumed that the subject covered the arts produced in the area from Spain and Northwest Africa to Central Asia, in societies where Islam was the major religion. Islamic art was thought to have begun in the 7th century, soon after the revelation of Islam, and continued up to the foundation of nation-states in the 19th century. Although, to be fair, the arts of the 17th and 18th century were largely overlooked. But in the intervening years, this view has changed substantially. Although Islamic art could not have begun any earlier, the demise, so-called, of Islamic art has been vastly overstated, and many people today consider what they are making Islamic art. The geographical scope has expanded as well, from the traditional heartlands of Islam to include such regions once considered peripheral as China, Southeast Asia, Trans-Saharan Africa, as well as the Muslim diaspora to Western Europe and the Americas. Similarly, the range of media has expanded, from the traditional architecture and the so-called decorative arts of illustrated books, ceramics, and metalwork, to now include photography, video, sculpture, installation, and much, much more. But these developments have brought a whole new set of issues to the fore. What does the term Islamic art mean? Does the work have to be made by a Muslim? Does it have to have a Muslim purpose? Does the artist have to come from the Middle East? Does the art have to have a religious component? Are Arabic calligraphy or geometry essential elements? Are there other features that define the term? Are there better alternatives? How does contemporary production of Islamic art, whatever it is, relate to the traditional arts of the past? How does using the term Islamic art compare to other adjectives, whether national, such as Iranian or Moroccan, or regional, such as Middle Eastern or North African? So we've organized this symposium to grapple with these, if not answer, these broad questions from a range of perspectives. We've invited scholars who do or don't use the term Islamic art, collectors and curators who buy and exhibit it, and artists who make it. So we invite you over the next 2 days to participate in what promises to be a most exciting exploration of a vast topic. We hope you will enjoy what we have planned. So please join me now in welcoming Sean Brixley, who's the Dean from VCUarts.
Good evening, Your Excellency, Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, honored guests. I'm Sean Brixley, Dean of the Virginia Commonwealth School of the Arts and Special Assistant to the Provost for the School of the Arts in Qatar. I'm pleased to see that so many of you have joined us for the 7th Biennial Hamad bin Khalifa Symposium on Islamic Art. It's an honor for me to be a part of what has become a preeminent international conference on Islamic art and culture. VCUarts is one of the nation's leading art schools, positioned at the center of a premier urban research university. At VCUarts, we are inspiring an industry of creative daring, supporting groundbreaking scholarship and research, and positioning our students to shape and develop new practices in the arts and design, business, and creative and emerging economies. This year, we celebrate the 20th anniversary of VCUarts in Qatar, and 2 decades of a fruitful partnership between VCU and the Qatar Foundation. It is a partnership that underscores both institutions' commitment to excellence, inquiry, discovery, and innovation, especially in a global setting. Over the past 20 years, the relationship between VCUarts and VCUarts in Qatar has grown into an exciting, collaborative conversation focused around art, design, culture, identity, and community. This relationship has been enriched by regular events such as our biennial design conference, Tasmeem, Doha, the summer enrichment program, and of course, this world-class symposium. It has provided students and faculty on both campuses with diverse interactions that broaden worldviews and inspire new ways of thinking. International engagement is a key asset for our students as they graduate into an increasingly integrated global economy. That global experience and perspective is crucial as it is now being bonded to a new mode of thinking, that of the hybrid artist. Artists are forging new paths in areas of healthcare, medicine, engineering, technology. Hybridization is becoming a primary modality that many artists and designers embrace. Just 2 weeks ago, VCUarts Qatar announced a new course being offered in collaboration with Texas A&M and Weill Cornell Medicine that will explore happiness and wellness through design and medical lens. At VCUarts, we are giving our students the skills they need to become the world's leading experts in their own areas of creative practice and inquiry, even as we expand those areas to include unlimited disciplines. We're not just providing our students with a degree, we're preparing them for a world of dynamic change and limitless possibility. No matter where they travel, whether it's to fashion titans of Fifth Avenue or to the studios of brilliant designers in Doha, our students bring with them the universal currency of creativity. Creativity is the new transferable skill in today's global culture of innovation. Artists and designers who graduate from VCUarts are already pushing us to reconsider entire industries and inventing wholly new art forms. They've taken their talents to Twitter, Facebook, IBM, Netflix, universities, and museums around the globe. And VCUarts is leading the way as we explore the boundaries of what arts mean today and how they will be inspired, sustained, and lived tomorrow. It is now with my great pleasure to introduce to you Mike Rao, the president of Virginia Commonwealth University.
Good evening. It is so good to be together with all of you tonight, and I want to begin by recognizing my great colleague who is truly a partner. He referred to me earlier as a sister, but I would like to refer to him as a partner in the Commonwealth of Virginia, Alex Nergis. Actually, what he really said is that we are sister institutions, and we are very proud to be so. But Alex, it is a delight to be together with you again. And what's particularly delightful, as Monica and I had a chance to spend some time with you earlier, is to look back with you through your long journey here at the VMFA and to have the opportunity to together admire so many of the great things that you've done to bring the VMFA to the place where we find it today. Congratulations, and thank you for sharing that with all of us, and certainly for sharing the VMFA in partnership with Virginia Commonwealth University. I'm also delighted to be here together with my faculty colleagues, two very special people who are tremendous leaders. They have spent 12 years in providing great service to Virginia Commonwealth University, and specifically to this symposium, which is now continuing to live on in such great ways. They really helped to make it a tremendously premier symposium on Islamic art and architecture anywhere in the world, and they've truly taken into consideration the entire world. And so I want to say specifically thank you to Sheila Blair and Jonathan Bloom. I've had a chance to spend the last day and a half with you and look forward to the rest of the weekend, and it's great to get together with you again after actually so many years of not seeing you, but you've continued to just do a wonderful, wonderful job. Well, I'm just really, really pleased with the theme, and as I think about the past, the present, and the future of Islamic art, I note that this symposium has really come full circle. So to tell that story a bit, it was about 13 years ago that it started here in Richmond, and now it's back in Richmond for the first time, again, since 2004. And in between, we've had wonderful journeys through Doha, through Cordoba, Spain, and Palermo as well. So we've truly been all over the world with a discussion that truly is a worldwide discussion. And at this point, it's really remarkable because we have been able to attract more than 2,500 people from 75 nations. We've hosted more than 70 speakers, generated 6 wonderful publications, all the way, albeit, I should say, published by the Yale University Press. And it has truly brought forward intriguing and what I'll say are very important discussions around Islamic art. And let me just say art more generally. And it's given us, I think, a much keener sense of who we are as human beings, because as my wife, who's an artist, reminds me all the time, art is such an important part of understanding human life and where we have been, but most importantly, where we are going. So I'm very, very proud that Virginia Commonwealth University and Richmond have been so central to these important discussions, and that we have helped move art throughout the world forward. And I want to say that we could not be where we are today, and we would not have even started 13 years ago if it weren't for some of the people who thought about all of these things many years ago. And of course, at the center of that was His Highness Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, the Father Emir, whose name was mentioned earlier because his name is, of course, on the chair that Jonathan and Sheila share. Her Highness Sheikha Moza bint Nasser Al Misned, who has been an incredible partner. I have enjoyed more than so many things that I have done in my service at Virginia Commonwealth University. I've so enjoyed working with Her Highness Sheikha Moza because she is such an incredible visionary. And to be a part of that vision, to have the privilege of working together with her has just been an incredible honor for me. And, of course, Her Excellency Sheikha Al Mayassa bint Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani as well, who I will introduce in just a moment. I do want to recognize as well my predecessor from 9 years ago. Up until 9 years ago, he served in my role. His name is Eugene Thani. This was an important thought for him, an important initiative for him, and he helped to make this possible. And now Sean Brixey, who you heard from earlier, but Joe Seipel, who came before Sean, and I certainly want to recognize Rick Toscan, who came before Joe Seipel. If it weren't for a vision that brought all of this together, none of us would be having these discussions, and they're very, very important discussions, particularly in light of so much of what we see around the world. And it brings for this next generation an incredible opportunity to really understand who we are as people, as human beings, because we are all so different and yet we are all so much alike. And there's so many opportunities for this next generation to understand and enjoy and appreciate things that we simply, in our generations, have not had so many opportunities to do so. I wanted to recognize tonight my partners, my daily partners who are so incredibly helpful to so many of the things that we do at VCU, which has now become a relatively large $4.7 billion enterprise. My partners are, of course, my team, but the Board of Visitors as well, and represented tonight here with our board rector, Phoebe Hall, who is here. Phoebe, thank you for being here, and I also want to thank a member of the board, Shantram Talagankar, who was actually a member of the VMFA board before he transferred, if you will, to Virginia Commonwealth University's board. So now I have the real honor of introducing to you Sheikha Al Mayassa. She's the young, progressive force behind Qatar's mission to become the Middle East's foremost destination for arts and culture. She's played an incredibly important pioneering role in advancing Islamic culture, education, and outreach throughout the world. She's the chair of the Qatar Museums Authority Board of Trustees. She guides the vision for future museums and cultural projects. She's an unstinting partner. She's been a great collaborator and a wonderful supporter of VCU Qatar. And in 2013, Monica and I had an opportunity to spend some wonderful time with her as she was our commencement speaker that year. So if you will please now join me in welcoming Her Excellency Sheikha Al Mayassa bint Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani.
Distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends, good evening. I am delighted to be here today to address you for the 7th Hamad bin Khalifa Symposium on Islamic Art. Next year, the VCU campus in Qatar will be celebrating 20 years of its existence. Establishing it in 1998 represented a bold decision by our country's leadership to build a branch campus of one of the finest art schools in the world. Now, President Rao will no doubt claim that it's the #1 art school in the world, and we're delighted to host you. VCUQ has produced new generations of young artists and designers who have enriched my country with creativity and innovation. It has made my job easier by empowering young creatives to not only produce art, but to participate in designing its exhibitions and presenting it to our different audiences. The fact of the matter is, VCUQ is also Qatar Foundation's first branch campus, which testifies to the creative affinity and ambitions of Arabs and Muslims. It also reflects the progress that our traditional nation has made. Initially, the campus was an all-girls school, but over the years, it was transformed into a co-ed institution. Its graduates are increasingly pursuing careers in the arts by joining the Qatar Museums as well as other cultural institutions in my country and worldwide. In fact, some of the most promising people working in the creative industries are graduates of VCUQ. So, Mr. President and all the faculty and administrators involved in these partnerships, congratulations. The subject of my discussion today is contemporary Islamic art. I have been asked to define the meaning and value in contemporary Islamic art. I would like to share my perspective, not that of a scholar, but that of a patron of the arts in my region, to shed some light on the cultural activity taking place in Qatar, but also a perspective that takes into account the challenges we face in our region today. Contemporary Islamic art derives much of its power from its ability to give voice to a large section of the world population by being contemporary in form and Islamic in character. Some of its practitioners draw their inspiration from the past, referencing great Islamic civilizations through contemporary narratives. Other artists choose to address their culture by using contemporary art idioms, not pertinent to any specific region or artistic practice, but relevant to their experiences and expressing their worldview. The very idea of contemporary Islamic art can be, and frequently is, debatable. Art produced today is nothing if not global, as many artists and art critics would argue. So what makes art both part of the Islamic canon and part of this global interconnected super-regional world? 7 years ago, in my TED Talk, I addressed the idea of the local and global, illustrating how the two terms have become complementary in our world. Similarly, contemporary art produced in Islamic countries or by artists who are Muslim is at once global, participating in the artistic dialogue across all country boundaries and recognizably Islamic, as it embodies and is inspired by our distinct culture and religious identity. This synthesis of the old and the new in art, of tradition and modernity, is what drives the vision of Qatar Museums' art programming forward. The exchange of ideas, histories, artistic identities, and investments in cross-cultural dialogue is important to us. We invite artists from all over the world to visit Doha, present their work, and engage with artists, both young and those that are more established. In the last few years, we have hosted artists like Damien Hirst, Chaiko Kwan, Richard Serra, Takashi Murakami, Luke Twymans, and others. We have equally been active in showcasing artists whose work may be considered to be contemporary Islamic, such as Shireen Nishat, Mona Hattoum, Wael Shawki, Dhiya Al-Zawi, and many more. Some of the artists from the Arab world whose works we display may take issue with the concept of contemporary Islamic art. Dhiya Al-Zawi comes to mind since his work references modern and ancient history and the culture of his native Iraq. But his work is not in dialogue with specifically Islamic concepts. He is engaging in a political conversation, no different from any Western artist today. Others, too, may question their engagement with religious topics. Nonetheless, the artistic productions in our part of the world is, on the whole, inextricably linked to and informed by Islamic culture and identity, which fuel work even by those artists whose main ideas and concepts seem far removed from any religious themes. What is the value of the concept of contemporary Islamic art? Beyond its art historical classification or beyond the typological, it is important that there is such a thing because it's a way of facilitating dialogue across cultures and artistic traditions between countries and individuals. Visual expressions is a form of cultural integration. Our contemporary artistic production represents the thoughts and ideas of our people. It represents a view of the world and its critique from our perspective. That perspective needs to be shared to enter a dialogue with Western art and with art from our regions of the world. 10 years after the establishment of VCUQ, the Museum of Islamic Art, known as MIA, was built. It is where we hosted you during the last Hamad bin Khalifa Symposium. Designed by I.M. Pei, a Chinese-American architect, the museum represents a very contemporary form of Islamic architecture and houses one of the most exclusive collections of Islamic art in the region, if not if I may say, the world. MIA is more than a museum. It is and will remain a symbol of our community and our youth. It is a beacon of diversity, richness, and innovation that mark our Islamic civilization as it was and as it should continue to be so. The museum, both physically and programmatically, is a platform for dialogue and exchange between scholars, artists, and the general public. It is a catalyst that encourages countries in the region to think about art and culture and embrace the differences of the human race through cultural exchange. It also exemplifies a progressive vision of investing in culture, the same way our investment in education has enabled our country to be fertile ground for creativity and innovation. The museum showcases and supports various themes in Islamic art: calligraphy, poetry, geometry, and floral motifs. We also address misconceptions such as the presumed lack of figurative representation in Islamic art. Through our collections, we exhibit such figurative representations, thus allowing people to understand the richness and plurality of Islamic artistic expression through the centuries, and subsequently, that there is not only one form of Islam. Some people are more conservative, while others are more liberal. And how they accept different forms of art very much depends on their outlook and understanding of what art should be. The museum also works closely with educators to train and empower them to teach not only about art as an aesthetic category, but about the socio-political and economic context of artworks. It is important to understand why these works were produced and to what end. Just as it's important to understand the historical production of Islamic art, one has to understand the contemporary representation of Islamic art today. Consider, why is a museum in Doha called the Museum of Islamic Art, yet the Islamic wing of the Metropolitan Museum in New York is called Galleries for the Art and Arab Lands, Turkey, Iran, Central Asia, and later South Asia? It is important to think of the context. The Met is situated in the city of New York. Its audiences are diverse, and it introduces a region that many may not be aware of in terms of its history, culture, richness, and geographical spread. To emphasize the numerous lands over which it extends allow for a sense of the great reach of this region's culture. In fact, as a Muslim Arab living in New York, I am very proud of what the Metropolitan Museum has done to their Islamic art wing. It's very educational and informative to their audiences. While in Doha, situated in an Arab country in a region with a Muslim majority, the emphasis on the common Islamic faith serves to emphasize a sense of identity for the people of the region. Following the opening of the Museum of Islamic Art in 2010, we opened Mathaf, an Arab museum of modern art. This building was once a school, and we converted it with the help of Jean-François Baudin into the museum it is today. The culture institution sits within Education City and offers an Arab perspective on modern and contemporary art. This museum is not just dedicated to gathering examples of Arab artistic expression, but is also a center for conceptualizing local artistic and culture practices. Through its curatorial mission, Mathaf has shaped new framework for contemporary Islamic art. 6 years ago, the Sualif Qatari Art Between Memory and Modernity exhibition, which featured only Qatari artists and works produced between the 1960s and early 2000s, embedded local art in a broader artistic discourse. Mathaf became an instigator and catalyst for young generations of local artists who, through exposure to the masters of modern art, built upon their narratives and through engagement with these artistic lineages have forged their own identities. The Museum of Islamic Art and Mathaf Arab Museum of Modern Art both create a nexus for contemporary artists working in contemporary idiom and/or reconnecting with their past. But it's also important to mention other institutions that have invested in offering support to such artists. For example, we have renovated an old fire station designed by a local architect, Ibrahim Al-Jada, and it's converted into a space that now supports many artists living in Qatar. As a matter of fact, we have many VCUQ faculty who end up with studios at our artists in residence. And every year, 20 artists benefit from the fire station. Two that come to mind are two VCU graduates, Uthman Al-Khunji, a Bahraini artist whose work addresses the topic of Islam, and Aisha Suwaidi, a Qatari artist who look at local traditions and refashions them in modern material and form. Qatar, our hugely popular culture village, embraces music, food, dance, theater, and poetry through its endless activities. The Qatar Philharmonic Orchestra bridges East and West, attracting members from across our society. All these culture entities once embraced our Islamic civilization and continue to do so, but in modern form. The Doha Film Institute have also supported filmmakers from our region and have taken them globally through multiple international awards. Rem Kool House's Qatar National Library, a part of Qatar Foundation, will open its doors this spring, making literature and science books accessible to all. The Private Engineering Office continued to build and restore historical buildings, respecting our architectural tradition, and one of their most famous projects is the Hamad bin Abdul Wahab Mosque, which is our new state mosque. In 2018, as we celebrate 10 years of the Museum of Islamic Art, and we'll be opening the new National Museum of Qatar, designed by our French architect Jean Nouvel. This is another example of a museum that, like today's topic, past, present, future, will embrace our country's history, presence, and future ambition. In one visit, those entering the museum will be able to understand our history, our present, and our future goals through a multidisciplinary approach. It is a living museum, and its narratives will be constantly updated depending on the events that take place around us. Now, one cannot ignore what's happening in our region today. So, for example, the political blockade imposed on us by our neighbors will now be included in this narrative. It is an important part of our present life, and with time, it will be part of our history. During the holiest month for all Muslims, our air and land borders were closed. Why did our brothers in the region impose such a blockade? Now, this is not a Damien Hirst installation. This is an animal left to die in the borders over the summer. Until now, no one really understands the real reason for this behavior, and the aggressors have still resisted any form of dialogue. The current crisis in the Gulf thus frames any conversation about contemporary culture, and by extension, arts in the region. The unfounded accusation, the funding of terror has been directed at what was, in fact, one of the most liberal nations in the Gulf. Qatar Foundation doesn't only host VCUQ, but is home to a variety of other branch campuses. Georgetown, Texas A&M, Weill Cornell Medical School, Northwestern University, Carnegie Mellon, UCL, and HEC. How can a country that has invested so much embracing the values of liberal Western education and principles of freedom by bringing these schools and making them accessible to its citizens and residents, be said to condone or support terrorists and their actions, which it entirely abhors and condemns? As a consequence, the blockade has further ignited our artists to communicate visually. The energy they propel is infectious, and here are some examples. Dialogue and diversity has always been a key component to Qatar's identity. Ours is a country made of diverse populations. Over 100 different nationalities live in Qatar. In such a place where many cultures intersect and people cohabit peacefully and in harmony, the value of cultivating an open mind is paramount. Similarly, in the international arena, we have always engaged in conversation with the world. And even when our views differed from others, we addressed such differences in a respectful and dignified manner. This approach is evident in everything that we do, including our activities related to contemporary art. We have invited large numbers of artists to engage with our communities and societies. We have commissioned these groups to produce works of art, literature, and engage in scientific activity. We have absorbed and encouraged the spread of ideas that we have embraced as part of a contemporary life in our country. Al Jazeera, for example, is not only the first free press in our region, but also one of the rare regional media outlets that promotes contemporary art and artists from the Muslim world, like Munir Fatmi. All around Doha, you can encounter sculptures of some of the world's most famous and cutting-edge artists, as well as sculptures by local and regional artists. We believe that art is a language that transcends linguistic and cultural differences. Sometimes when an artwork was introduced into the public sphere, some sections of the community who were unused to such things initially reacted in less than a positive fashion, the bear being an example. But after a while, dialogue and discussion started to take place, and the wider public began to truly appreciate these artworks. Some sculptures that may have been bewildering initially have since become a beloved symbol of our city. Since the Earth Fisher Bear has been installed at the Hamad International Airport, it's become a favorite spot for taking selfies, and through the dissemination of these images through social media, it has become a recognizable symbol of Doha around the world. So if you pass by, you better take a selfie. Killer graffiti murals by the French-Tunisian artist El Cid adorn one of the motorway tunnels in Doha. He used our national anthem lyrics and poetry in his calligraphy in one of the most popular undergrounds. When some critics state that we are importing Western culture, I ask them, didn't Islamic art influence some of the greatest masters of the West? Wasn't Matisse, Picasso, and Klee as examples influenced by the productions of Islamic art? Don't Western museums own some of the best collections provided from our Islamic civilizations? If you want to learn about Babylon, you have to go to Berlin. And if you want to retrace Palmyra, you need Paris. So what is Islamic art? How about Islamic architecture and the Arabic language? The story is never one-sided. Artistic creations moved with economic centers, and past works from one culture and civilization may influence an artist of another history. As a Muslim artist, you do not have to carry the weight of art history on your shoulders, which gives us the freedom to create in whichever narrative we choose to. If their inspiration lies in their past, so be it. If they choose to embrace new narratives, so be it. That's their choice and liberty. But to come back to our initial question, is contemporary Islamic art only defined by the identity of the artist? What about the artworks that are created in dialogue with Islamic tradition? Richard Serra's Seven is created in the artist's recognizable minimalistic artistic idiom, but is also inspired by the shape of the minaret and is intended to be understood as a visual marker within the skyline of our city. Very much in the same way that I Am Pace project from the Museum of Islamic Art in Doha was similarly rooted in a dialogue between the past and the present, redefining the language of Islamic architecture for the new age. And Jean Nouvel's National Museum of Qatar, like his Institut du Monde Arabe in Paris, is a structure that draws an inspiration from Islamic lands and cultures, creating a distinctly innovative synthesis and artistic expression. All these examples show that Islamic art is not left in the past. It is neither stranded in the distorted mirror of the Orientalist art, nor is it ossified in the beautiful medieval objects. It is alive, ever-changing, constantly evolving, and redefining itself. It is a vigorous artistic expression that participates in global dialogue while preserving its heritage and traditions and inspiring future generations. It is an expression of freedom and a vehicle of dialogue and exchange. Contemporary Islamic art surpasses all prejudices and borders. It brought us all together today for the 7th Hamad bin Khalifa Symposium on Islamic Art, a reflection of 14 years of close collaboration between Doha and Richmond to exchange ideas and research on this topic. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our co-chairs, Sheila and Jonathan, and thank you for giving me the honor to open this conference. I am thrilled to be here and very much looking forward to an inspiring few days of discussion between some incredible speakers and experts. I trust that you will find the event educative, informative, and enjoyable. In dialogue, we shall engage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. The work that you're doing to foster the arts and cross-cultural dialogue it's truly inspiring. And thank you for joining us and sharing your rich and thoughtful insight and perspective on Islamic art.